The man who is dedicated to service sees life's problems from a different viewpoint. He becomes inspired at times, and nothing seems as difficult as it otherwise would appear. Successful ways of dealing with troublesome situations come to mind naturally when the aim is directed towards service. Hard work is no longer drudgery, but often comes as a pleasure. In short, one's whole being is lifted up when his prime objective is service. In addition to the inward satisfaction derived from service rendered to others, the rewards and money that we expect to receive for our efforts are almost certain to be greater than if money itself were the first and only consideration. Long ago, a philosopher went right into the heart of this. He said, "Little service, little reward." How regrettable it is that more men don't understand the meaning of those simple words. Little service, little reward. To put reward ahead of service is like putting the trailer before the tractor. Yet, that is what some men are doing. They are going about their jobs backwards because they do not understand the motivational power of service to others. Imagine what the overall benefits to our business could be if all our people were actuated by the spirit of service. For service is the sum of many things done well. That's Jim Casey, and it's 1960. At this time, he's 72 years old, and he's speaking to his plant managers at their yearly conference. And his focus is still the same as when he started UPS, the spirit of service. He knew it was easy to miss if you rushed, thus he never stops talking about it. If we flash back to when Jim Casey founded UPS in 1907, he was only 19 years old, but he already had 8 years of experience delivering messages and packages, along with 2 prior businesses. One thing that he learned early is that anyone can deliver messages and packages. It doesn't take any special skill to do that. The value that his customers love, service, for which Jim never shuts up about. And if we take that focus on service and we let it build over decades, the result is the largest parcel company in the world today. If we just think about that for a moment, service and time, mix that with what you love. Who is going to stop you? No one. On episode 16, you and I spoke about Jim Casey in detail, how he founded and how he grew UPS. The book for that episode, and one that I hope you can pick up, it was called Big Brown by Greg Neiman. For the episode today, I found this collection of talks that Jim Casey gave each year at their UPS plant manager meetings. What I do is when I read books, I normally like to hop on eBay just to see if I could find anything interesting about the founder or the entrepreneur. I like to see some of the older items that are out there, like stock certificates signed by Jay Gould or letters from Rockefeller, things like that. For Jim Casey, I came across this collection of talks that spanned over a 20-year period of time. Of the 30 biographies or so that I've read for the podcast, Jim Casey's story, at least for me, is easily in my top 5 favorites. And so I paid $50 for the talks. They're called Determined Men Working Together. And I thought that I would share a few things with you today from those talks. In fact, as I was reading the collection of talks, I kept thinking about these as the original podcast. Jim, he is speaking to a large group of managers and executives, so I guess that's like the pod. He's going into their business history, and he's referencing other great founders like Henry Ford, and he's kind of tying everything together to give solid examples. And as I was reading the talks, there are 3 things that Casey never stops talking about. The first is the focus on service. Then he goes into cost control, And then with every single talk, he's always diving into empowering employees and how to be successful in the company. This decades long story, it starts out when Jim is only 11 years old. At the time, his father was sick with miner's lung disease, and so he couldn't go out and work or maintain any sort of steady employment. So Jim, he's the oldest child. He feels really compelled to help support the family. So he goes out to find work in Seattle. And the only place that would hire this skinny little boy was the package delivery team at Bon Marchés, which was a popular department store in Seattle. Quickly, this blue, gray eyed kid, he starts jumping from job to job. He was trying to earn more money for his family, so he was going anywhere that would pay him a higher rate. He was really under a lot of pressure to help out. But along the way, he also learns and he discovers that service gives him an unfair advantage against others, and he vows to always put service first in his heart. One quote that I love, and I used it on the Jim Casey episode, it comes from John Maxwell. Anyone can serve a customer on a good day. Excellence is serving them well on a bad day. That really is a simple saying, yet it's incredibly hard to do. When I read the saying, it fits Jim Casey so perfectly in how seriously he took service. A young Jim, he finds himself working the night shift. He's trying to go to school during the day. And during those nighttime hours, he is tasked with delivering more than just messages. Listen to what this kid is doing. He's going down to the waterfront to buy opium and deliver it to drug addicts. He's running cocaine to what he called the snowbirds. He's rushing pails of beer across town. He's babysitting in hotel rooms. He's pumping the church organ. He's collecting bail for guys that were in jail. He's working as a detective, shadowing people looking for cheating spouses. And just think about that. He's 15. And he's learning that service means servicing everyone. You don't get to pick. You serve whoever's directly in front of you. This is where UPS comes from, the kid and the streets. This is the origin story. I keep coming back to this moment as I think about Jim Casey. Excellence is serving customers well on a bad day. That's what Jim Casey did. These lessons, they feed into the company that he founds in 1907 called American Messenger Company. This company becomes UPS. At the start, the basics. The company offered best service and lowest rates around the clock, including evenings, Sundays, and holidays. On top of that, they took a different approach than others. If a call came in and the messenger was not immediately available, Jim and Claude never answered right away, as did many of their competitors. Instead, they would honestly answer that it might be a few minutes, perhaps even a half an hour. Customers came to know that American Messenger Company messengers always met their time commitment. Their first company policy: never promise more than you can deliver, and always deliver what you promise. That rule never leaves them. And that's how, with a promise, UPS pushes upstream in the early days to start delivering packages for department stores. 38 years later, in 1948, Jim reflects upon this. Our efforts to succeed can be effective only if we have a clear idea of what we want to accomplish. What are we striving for? Are we working for money alone? If so, there's no sure way to not get it. Our real primary objective is to serve, to render perfect service to our stores and their customers. If we keep that objective constantly in mind, our reward in money can be beyond our fondest dreams. In the days when the existence of competition was more readily seen than it is today, you may be sure that we did work for the interest of the stores and their customers. We gave them the best we were capable of. We know what the penalty would be if we failed. Just a quick note here, when UPS was founded, there were hundreds and hundreds of delivery companies. the price of entry into that business, it was very low. As UPS grew, they would buy up a lot of these smaller companies, or simply those companies just went out of business. And I want to stay with Jim's line of thinking here just for a moment. For example, we didn't look at losses and damages of merchandise as just so much expense for our company. We looked at them as something that would ruin our reputation in the minds of shopkeepers. We didn't look at delayed deliveries and other complaints as a mass of statistics to be filed away and forgotten. We looked at them almost with terror. We regarded every complaint or cause from complaint as a flaw in our service, and we trained our people to prevent them. We clearly saw that in doing our work for the stores as well as it should be done, we would at the same time advance our own interest. And I tell you now that this large group of executives gathered from widely scattered sections of the country would not have met here in New York tonight, for there would be no United Parcel Service if smaller, earlier groups of people had not maintained ideals of service and appearance higher than those prevailing in our company today. The current day executives are standing on the shoulders of giants. This is the same thing that we saw with Arthur Guinness on episode 21. His father had learned to read at a time when it was uncommon to do so. This moves the family from farming to tradesmen. Arthur, he follows his father, he becomes highly literate, and he enters into his father's trade, standing on his shoulders. He learns business, he founds and grows his brewery over the next 50 years, and Arthur's shoulders were even stronger and broader than his father's. Thus, his dry stout has been in service for more than 265 years. Now, one thing that Jim says is that through service, opportunity is here, and they have no limits, except one. We are limited in only one respect: the prices charged for our services. The maximum prices that customers will pay us will be fixed, not by us, but by our competitors. We all know that in the field where our greatest chance for development lies, our sole competitor is Parcel Post. Assuming, as we should, that we eventually will have operative rights covering all parts of the country and that nothing else will impede us, the rates of Parcel Post and our ability to operate within those rates will determine whether our business is to be a miserable failure or a brilliant success. Here's the thing with this. UPS, they made a choice: match or beat the post office rates. This keeps them in a pressure cooker, and it forces them to control their cost. On top of that, at the end of the 1950s, they were only in a little over a dozen or so metropolitan areas. And it wouldn't be until 1975 that UPS would finally cover the entire United States, 68 years after Casey's original vision. Imagine that, chasing a vision for 68 years. That's why I really love studying Jim Casey, one of the deepest drives and pure focus of any founder. Now in 1950, the Parcel Service, they have a monopoly on the United States geography, covering all areas. So for UPS, service and controlling costs was critical. Casey hammers this home in his 1953 talk. It's a little long, but it's so damn good. I would like to speak to you about a few general principles that should be understood by every one of us. Our company is trying to do a few simple things. We are trying to provide delivery service at prices low enough to make stores willing to employ us. We are trying to provide more jobs, favorable working conditions at the highest rates of pay for people in our company. We are trying to pay our stockholders reasonable compensation for the use of their savings, invested in plants, equipment, motor cars, and other facilities used in our operations. We are trying to ensure the permanent existence and steady growth of our company so that it can provide regular work, security, and opportunities for all of us. Their first objective is obviously to keep prices low for their stores. Many were starting to use UPS only to deliver those heavy objects. The automobile, it's become commonplace, and a lot of shoppers, they would simply just hand carry those smaller items home. The next objective calls for paying higher wages and good working conditions. When you first look at it, it feels like these objectives might cause higher rates to the stores. But through what Casey calls better management, greater ingenuity, and continued search for improved methods, the costs they can stay low. Now, if we look at the bigger picture, labor is 75% of their cost. That is a lot. This talk in 1953, it goes deep into the thinking of the concept of time and how that relates to cost and how it helps bring in more business. By making costs lower, this results in more sales. The difficult predicament in which we find ourselves calls for savings in one place where really big savings can be made. We must find ways to save some of the time that we now consume in the handling of a delivery. It may astonish some of you to hear that the total time spent on each package delivered in the New York area is approximately 7.5 minutes. The average rate of pay of our people is 3.5 cents a minute, and that does not include benefits such as hospitalization, Social Security, compensation insurance, etc. 7.5 minutes at 3.5 cents a minute is over 26 cents a package for wages and salaries alone. If somehow we could save just half a minute of time on each package, the total savings in dollars on millions of packages would be enormous. With that savings, we could pay higher wages than we pay today, or could quote lower rates for our services, or we could do both. At lower rates, stores would give us more business and our people would have more and better jobs. Time spent unnecessarily on any single operation hurts every one of us and defeats the very purpose to which we exist. Too much time spent in any one of our operations costs money that could be used to pay higher wages. Too much time spent in any one of our operations weakens the position of our entire company. What hope have we of winning our fight against high delivery costs if we cannot find ways to reduce the amount of time consumed in the handling of a delivery from the store to the customer? In short, if you want to find the money with which to pay higher wages, if you want to prevent costs from rising higher, if you want today's conference to be productive in the ways contemplated by your plans and discussions, look for the many ways and places where it is possible to save time. From the day that Jim Casey founded UPS, he was the plant, he created the plant, he was always in the plant, and he knew the plant from A to Z. When you know your business from A to Z, there's no problem that you can't solve, as we learned from Sam Zamuri on episode 9. As we'll see in the next talk, it really feels like Jim Casey is a student of Henry Ford. Each function in the plant is measured to the smallest detail and it's improved upon nonstop. This yields cost savings. And once you see cost savings, it's hard to unsee them. Jim uses them to reduce prices to his stores and it wins more business. Let's jump into the talk from 1958. To avoid harmful competition from any source, we must be not only vigilant, but we must continually study and plan how to be of the greatest service at the lowest rates over wider and wider areas. Now here, incidentally, is a note of warning. One thing that we are doing, we think out of necessity, is to use our ability to raise prices as a means of solving our problems. We have learned from experience that every time we raise our price, some of our volume disappears. Perhaps our cost would be lower if it were more difficult to increase our prices. This next paragraph coming up, this is the one that made me stop and think about the original podcast that I had mentioned earlier. The founder of what was the greatest industrial success in history until it violated the very principles that made it great, said that price determines cost, not the other way around as most people think. Henry Ford priced his product low to bring it within reach of more buyers, and he found a way to produce it at cost within the price he had set. Notice what Jim Casey does here. He's praising Ford, but he's giving a warning saying that it violated the very principles that made it great. Basically, he's saying this works only if you don't stop. Back on episode 1, we spoke about Ford, and he said the following about cost. No one knows what a cost ought to be. One of the ways of discovering what a cost ought to be is to name a price so low as to force everybody in the place to the highest point of efficiency. The low price makes everybody dig for profits. We make more discoveries concerning manufacturing and selling under this forced method than by any other method of leisurely investigation. If we pivot from Ford back to Casey here, he tells us, if we do likewise, voluntarily or through necessity, we might find ways to reduce our costs below what they otherwise would be. How close are we at the top rates the traffic will bear? Okay, for a second, I had to stop here and I had to look that up. Top rates that traffic will bear. That was new for me, and it's really easy just to read that line and pass it over, and I wanted to understand it a little bit more. What he's doing here is he's asking his managers, are we at the maximum rate that a customer or a store would pay to ship a package with us? Because if we are, we need to be aware of the following. Remember that any business that charges all the traffic will bear will eventually find itself on the skids. Now, this is a warning shot, and you can feel it when you're reading it. If you ever start charging all the traffic will bear or the maximum rate that someone would pay, you're finished. Someone hungrier is going to undercut you. Casey, he saw this clearly. Henry Ford did too, until the company later forgot it. So if we ever let our operations become loose and do not worry about costs because we think the traffic will bear higher rates, we can look for at least 2 dangers that might ruin us. First, we can expect that other men who know how to operate at lower cost will take away our business. Second, we must always face the possibility that parcel posts will be subsidized to a greater extent than in the past and won't charge rates as high as our cost. If it happens and we are operating on the basis of all the traffic will bear, what will happen to us? Don't forget what Henry Ford had in mind when he would sell you a good automobile for $400 and said, price makes the cost. Cost does not make the price. Competitors never caught up to Ford while he followed that principle. Let us think about that in the management of our business. When I read this, it's clear that Casey is a student of Ford. He believed in his early working strategies. Therefore, he used these to teach to the benefits of UPS. But he was also wise enough to see why they fell down and to warn his men about this. This brings us into the third area of Jim Casey's speeches, the people working for UPS. Of the 20 speeches in the book, every single one of them spends some amount of time talking about the people involved in the business, which makes perfect sense because 75% of their costs, after all, are going to pay wages for time. Casey, he sounds just like Ford on wages here. This is from 1960. high wage rates do not always result in excessively high cost. A point to understand is that interested people, well paid and working effectively because they want to work effectively, can produce at lower cost than workers who are poorly paid and have little interest in their jobs. This is the exact same thinking that you and I saw with Ford on episode 1. The payment of higher wages fortunately contributes to the low cost because the men become steadily more efficient on account of being relieved of outside worries. The payment of $5 a day for an 8-hour a day was one of the finest cost-cutting moves we ever made, and the $6 a day wage is cheaper than 5. 6 is cheaper than 5. That is amazing. If we stay here just for a second, Joe Colomb, who was the founder of Trader Joe's, he says, good people pay by their extra productivity. If we jump over to Harry Schneider, founder of In-N-Out Burger, he paid way above market rates. No one ever quit. His people got so good, he had to go out and build new stores just to give them room to grow as employees. Expansion was driven by talent, not just by demand. Now, if we step back to Jim Casey's shoes here, he wants people who are dedicated to the purpose, those that know the why behind the work. He doesn't want clock punchers. Clock punchers can simply drop out. He explains this so well in his 1961 talk. We must emphasize the purpose itself rather than the mechanics of it. We cannot learn, we cannot teach unless the why is put ahead of the how. We cannot hope to be truly effective in any part of our work unless we and the people we direct understand and, more importantly, believe in the reason for it. Our beliefs must be so strong that they are contagious. People will not accept our teachings and instructions unless backed up by flesh and blood in the spirit of kinship. These can only result from a firm belief in the purposes for which our company stands. Our first advice, therefore, to any man, no matter how capable a craftsman, who does not sincerely believe in the cause to which the rest of us are dedicated, should be to drop out. He's telling people who don't believe to leave. That's how serious he takes this. This goes along with what Simon Sinek is always saying. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Now at these yearly conferences, Casey, he's talking to his plant managers. Each metro region that they service has a plant for package distribution, and the plant manager is like the overall authority for that particular plant. I think of them as like the CEO of their metro plant. Then UPS, they have this central management team that provides yearly budgets and helps with more complex issues, kind of like a board of directors, if you will. What would Jim Casey want in those people who stayed? Well, in 1856, he gives kind of a famous talk that's called A Talk with Joe. At the core, Jim Casey, he's giving his managers a playbook on how founders should think. I went through the talk and pulled out the best lines for us to think about. There's about 20 or so of them. And for me, as I was doing this, I was just imagining that I was a new manager with this fire inside to be great, and which ones would help me the most. I'll blast through them here. First up, you're a man of inquiring mind, and you see much in your job and elsewhere in the company that should be improved. That's 100% Sam Walton. He spent more time in his competitors' stores than competitors did themselves, taking notes and implementing the best ideas always. Next up, because of your habit of thinking of betterments in your own work, your insight will become keener and you'll be quick to observe what can be improved in any part of the business that you look at. Kent Taylor comes to mind. When he built Texas Roadhouse, he used this habit of betterment. He was always improving non-stop. That's episode 11, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about him. Next on the list, Your mastery will attract the attention of your associates, and they will bring you some of their problems and ask for your advice. This will broaden your outlook across the business. Next up, likewise, you will consult with others on your problems, finding better solutions. It is then you will see the heart of the problem. Wisdom shows itself in connecting with others, not in isolation. Let's keep going. Your daily work will never be a drudgery. Instead, you will see it as a pleasure because you will be working for a purpose. I picture Fred Rogers. He turned his purpose into joy. That goes back to putting the why first. The next founder insight here. You will be known as a man who is willing to accept responsibilities and can be depended upon to do so without supervision. As a young bookkeeper, John D. Rockefeller was exactly this way, staying late, going over the ledgers again and again, looking for those missing pennies. No one asked him to do it. He just did it. Next up, and perhaps one of my favorites, you will drive yourself. Owners act with permission. Clock punchers, they wait to be told. Casey wants owners. I really wonder if Jim Casey would like this podcast. Moving on. Your associates will try to emulate you, and they who are not themselves leaders will gladly follow you. This one can be easily overlooked. Your actions, how you move, what you decide, and how you treat others. That is silent teaching. John Maxwell says, the highest calling of a leader is to develop leaders. This is something that Saul Price understood deeply. He believed that teaching was his most important job. In fact, he felt that training manuals were often a poor way to learn. The leader should model the way for the mentee. This feeds into the next one. You will be patient in the weakness and failings of others. Next up, you will learn more and more from experience that no two men are exactly alike. So you will make the most of the good points in each and forget the bad. I think Jim Collins said this best. The right people are on the bus. The wrong people are off the bus, and the right people are in the right seats. Clean, clear, and crisp. The next one. Through your practice of being a good listener, you will receive some of your most valuable education. That describes Sam Walton so well. He spoke to his truck drivers, his cashiers, his associates, his competitors. He listened more than he talked. It reminds me of that saying. I don't know exactly where I heard this, but when I heard it, it just stuck in my mind. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that ratio. Next up, you will not humiliate people. In fact, we should do the exact opposite. Herb Kelleher, he treats his gate agents and his baggage handlers like executives. Always praise in public, give criticism in private. Let's keep going. You are a trustworthy and sincere man. When this becomes known, your word will carry tremendous weight. If we go back to Saul Price, he was the father of the modern day low margin retailers. He built this concept, and it was cloned by Walmart, Target, Kmart, Sam's Club, Home Depot, and of course, Costco. Saul's word carried tremendous weight. Next up, you won't try to fool people. You don't need to. Next one, you do not consider yourself smarter than other people. In fact, you are not. The difference is that you use your brains in an orderly, logical way. That's pure Leonard Lauder right there. On episode 22, we learned how he put his ego on the chopping block, and he always hired people that were smarter than him. That gave him, and it will give you, an unfair advantage in business when you hire the smartest people you can find. Let's keep going. You see clearly what you want to accomplish. Think it through and never lose sight of the main objective. The man speaking these words, Jim Casey, he's a living example of this. 68 years. That is a long time. 68 years. He kept his vision of nationwide shipping. He never lost sight of that. Vision sustained over decades is rare, and it's decisive. Next on the list here, you will seek out the things a well-rounded executive needs to know, and through objectively selected reading and courses of study, Outside of business hours, you will prepare yourself for the position you would like to see yourself in someday. Just think about that for a second. Prepare yourself for the position you want. Several times in his talk, Jim says to use visualization to see your work and how it will impact the company. Estee Lauder, she did the same thing, always visualizing making the big sales. It works. Next on the list. As to your job, you'll see clearly that the price of progress is service, and that the more valuable you make your service to others, the more profitable it will be to you. Something Sam Walton said that always stuck with me. He said there's only one boss, the customer. Elevate your service. They're going to come back time and time again. Last one, the one that Jim never stops talking about. You will reverse the common tendency of people to put dollars first in every move they make. You'll see that money comes after the results, not before them. If you're sitting in that room, once you hear this, you can't unhear it. That's how I think about it. Action is your next step. If you're not doing these things, I damn well believe that you're going to be doing them after. Casey, he winds down the talk saying the following. These, of course, are only a few of the details. You will work out the details as you come into them in your own logical way. There will be no magic shortcuts. There are never magic shortcuts anywhere. The right way is the hard way. And the hard way, done long enough with service at the center, turns out to be the fastest way there is. As Jim said in 1948, determined men can make conditions. They do not allow themselves to be the victims of them. When you're 15 years old and you're sent out on the worst jobs possible, you're going down to the waterfront to get more drugs for your customers, you're rushing beer across town, and you're hauling furniture up the stairs, only you can make that condition into a positive situation. Reframe it. This is what Jim did. Service is the sum of many little things done well. I've really enjoyed sharing these talks with you today, and I hope that you find some value in the episode today that will help you in your business or perhaps even your personal life. I've also collected some other Jim Casey works, and I hope to talk to you about them in future episodes. And I'll just give you a quick sample. The 1984 Management Conference official attendee list has one sad and obvious omission. The name of James E. Casey. After a lifetime that included 42 management conferences, Jim Casey died June 6, 1983. He was 95 years old. Jim made it a practice each year to address his associates on an issue which would offer practical guidance. Jim wrote his own talks, sometimes taking days to prepare his drafts. Other times, Jim would carefully prepare notes, but tear them up at the last minute and speak extemporaneously to the group. Jim Casey, he remains on the board of UPS until the day he dies. 77 years of service. A true legend in business history. Thanks for teaching us, Jim. Until next time, make it a beautiful day in the neighborhood, my friend.